All right, let's talk about a 700-year-old masterpiece that, believe it or not, was written as a direct response to a global pandemic. This is Giovanni Boccaccio's Decameron, and it's not just a book about surviving, it's about how storytelling itself is a powerful way to survive.
And look, to really get why this book is so important, you have to start where Boccaccio starts, with the absolute horror of the Black Death. He doesn't pull any punches. He uses his own words to paint this picture of almost unimaginable loss right from the beginning.
To truly understand the escape the characters make, you first have to understand what they were escaping from. Boccaccio doesn't just mention the plague, he pretty much forces you to walk through the ruins of 14th century Florence and see a world that has completely and utterly fallen apart.
Just think about that number for a second. Over 100,000 people in one city in just a matter of months. Boccaccio wants us to feel the weight of that, the sheer scale of the catastrophe. Because this isn't just some historical backdrop, it's the abyss that the entire story climbs out of.
And the truly chilling part? These aren't just bullet points. This is Boccaccio's eyewitness account. He's describing a world where every single social bond has just dissolved. Family, law, friendship, even basic human decency. All of it just gone, swallowed up by fear.
But then, right at this moment of total despair, the book does something incredible. It pivots. In the middle of all the chaos, a small group of people comes up with this radical alternative. They decide that if the world is ending, they're going to choose how they face that end.
And here they are, our protagonists, 10 wealthy, well-educated young Florentines who just happen to find each other in a deserted church. And they all agree that just sitting around waiting to die in a city of ghosts, well, that's not an option. They choose life.
And their plan? It's just brilliant in its simplicity. They realize they can't just run away. They have to actively rebuild a society from scratch. So they create their own little government, their own rules, their own daily schedule, and they build it all around the simple, civilizing act of telling stories. And just like that, they create this perfect contrast. They literally leave the world of death, chaos, and fear behind them, and in its place, they build this little bubble, this island of life, order, and storytelling. They're using art to hold back the darkness. So this new little society they've built becomes the stage for the real heart of the book, and honestly, one of the greatest collections of stories ever put to paper.
The title itself is actually a hint about how it's all structured. Decameron literally comes from the Greek for 10 days. Pretty straightforward, right? For 10 days, each of the 10 people tells one story, adding up to a nice round 100 tales, a perfectly ordered world of words. And this structure is what lets Boccaccio explore, well, pretty much everything about being human. One day, they're telling stories about people who get out of terrible situations by the skin of their teeth. The next, it might be all about tragic love stories. And another, it's tales of incredible generosity.
And when I say the range is staggering, I mean it. You get stories that are deeply tragic, laugh-out-loud hilarious, super spiritual, and, yeah, incredibly raunchy. Boccaccio is interested in all of it. The full, messy, glorious spectrum of what it means to be alive. Okay, so take the first story, about a guy named Sir Capoletto. This man is the absolute worst. A liar, a cheat, just a terrible person. But when he's on his deathbed, he gives this beautiful, pious, and completely fake confession to a priest who buys the whole thing. He's so convincing that after he dies, the town makes him a saint, and people start praying to him. It's an absolutely brilliant and hilarious takedown of hypocrisy.
Or then you've got the wild ride of Andreuccio of Perugia. This poor guy goes to Naples, and in a single night he gets scanned by a prostitute, falls into a sewer, gets trapped in a tomb with a dead archbishop, and is left for dead by grave robbers. And yet somehow, through sheer dumb luck, he escapes with a priceless ruby. It's the perfect story about how fortune is just this crazy, unpredictable roller coaster.
And then there's the final story of patient Griselda, and wow, this one is a lot. A nobleman decides to test his peasant wife's loyalty, so he puts her through these unbelievably cruel trials. He pretends their children are dead, he kicks her out with nothing, and even says he's going to marry someone else. It's a really unsettling story about virtue and power that people have been arguing about for centuries.
So you might be asking, okay, these are some wild stories, but what's the point? Well, they aren't just entertainment. If you look closely, woven through all of them is a kind of philosophy, a blueprint for understanding the big forces that shape our lives. You see, in Boccaccio's world, life is really a tug of war between these three great powers. You've got fortune,
That's the random, blind luck that can make you rich one minute and ruin you the next. Then you have wit. That's human intelligence, the cleverness you use to outsmart a bad situation. And finally, there's love. This powerful, natural, and very human drive that makes people do both incredible and incredibly foolish things.
So why are we still talking about this book 700 years after it was written? Because it represents this huge, monumental shift in how we think about the world and about ourselves.
In a nutshell, it's a monument to humanism. See, in a world that was mostly focused on God and the afterlife, Boccaccio writes this massive book that celebrates life right here on Earth. His heroes aren't just saints and martyrs. They're clever merchants, witty women, and passionate lovers. He celebrates our ingenuity, our resilience, and our ability to create beauty and order right in the middle of total chaos. And you know what? He tells you his whole mission in the very first sentence of the book's preface. It's the foundation for everything that follows. He's saying that when you're faced with incredible suffering, the most human, the most essential response is compassion. The stories themselves are an act of compassion, a gift of comfort and distraction for people who need it.
And that really brings us to the final, crucial takeaway. The Decameron is a book that was born from a crisis, and it makes this powerful argument that stories are what help us get through. It asks a question that is just as important for us today as it was for Boccaccio's readers back then. When the world feels like it's falling apart, what are the stories we tell ourselves to find meaning, to find order, and to find a reason to just keep going?